It's a pleasure to have you here. And to our partners at the Japanese American Veterans Association, Virginia Asian Chamber of Commerce, Vietnamese American Uniformed Service Members Association, AGEN, APAC, Floyd, thank you for coming out today. And the Sikh Coalition, Kamal, it's an honor to have you again, as always. Thank you for making today possible. It's an honor to open today's events and set the stage in a journey from our rich tradition of service as AAPIs in the military in nearly every major conflict our nation has had, to the challenges we face as the fastest growing demographic in America. As this trend continues, so too are the young men and women across America raising their right hand to serve our great nation. And while we all share in such a deep tradition, we must acknowledge that a profound paradox exists between the passion of our service and the darkness that periodically surfaces when ignorance rears its ugly head and reminds us that even today we must move forward towards reconciliation, unity, and a productive dialogue if we are to become a more perfect union. That is why each of you are here today. This story, the story of AAPIs in military service, is not without the heroes who we celebrate. Their deeds serve as a reminder that as a nation, we are strongest when our sense of optimism and goodwill reigns supreme. I mention this because above all, this is what our forefathers believed in. And the promise of America would so prove even today that the audacity of hope is alive and well in our democracy. And the glorious sound of the old garden fife that we heard this morning reminds me that we can ill afford to abandon the values that make our nation great. In the spirit of remembrance, we can go all the way back to the Revolutionary War to find AAPIs serving, with Filipino Americans who served honorably in the Navy. Filipinos also manned defensive batteries at the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812. In the U.S. Civil War, individuals like Chinese American Corporal Joseph Pierce fought at the battles of Antietam and Gettysburg. And despite the provisions of the Chinese Exclusion Act, over 500 Chinese Americans fought under General Pershing in the Mexican expedition in 1916. In World War I, Bhagat Singh became the first turbaned Sikh American to serve in the U.S. Army. During World War II, the story of Japanese American Nisei soldiers is a reminder of our paradoxical history. Because many of them chose to serve while they were jailed by our government, merely due to the color of their skin. After the war, President Truman stated, "You fought not only the enemy, you fought prejudice and won." I'm proud to say that we have one of them here with us today. Terry Shima, is he here yet? Not yet? Okay. He's expected to be here today. If you get the opportunity, take a few minutes and spend time with Terry. It will literally blow you away. He is an inspirational individual that ought to be recognized. You'll also hear from General Tony Taguba, who will tell the story of our Filipino World War II veterans, their undying faith to our nation, and a promissory note yet to be fulfilled. And one of them is here with us today. Hopefully he'll be joining us in a little bit, but I want to introduce you to Celestino Almeida, and when you see him, thank him as well. These individuals and events that surround them are not inconveniences to be shrugged off from our history, but rather paradoxes to be remembered and understood for all time as lessons for our next greatest generation. For we cannot meet the challenges of the future without first reconciling the realities of the past. So today, we stand on the shoulders of these incredible pathfinders and recognize that we would not be here today without their courage, dedication, and sacrifice. Derive a sense of pride from their accomplishments. Know their story, but most importantly, let it fuel your sense of wonder and authenticity each day you serve. Let their example guide you in future challenges and remind you that their courage, is the foundation of our courage. So today is not only about honoring the rich tradition of military service, but also a time for rolling up our sleeves and remembering the work that we have in front of us. Because the challenges faced by one are the challenges faced by all of us. That is why, for the first time, we've gathered all AAPI communities today under one roof. And like the pathfinders who've gone before us, there are heroes among you. Because when you're different, striving to be your authentic self is indeed an act of courage, but one that will help shape the future of our nation. People like Army Captain Gary Body remind me that we're stronger when we stand up to bigotry and hate, even when such a climate might dominate the landscape. Gary, you're here with us. Stand up, please. You see, a little over a year ago, Gary came to me and told me that he was handed a piercing racial epithet in front of his peers by being compared to ISIS by his leadership. Worse yet, he came to know that he wasn't the first person to face this injustice. But both he and his wife stood tall and showed remarkable courage in the following months. Even when the MEO system would not consider that the climate he was expected to train in would be recognized, or even recognize the epithets that had become commonplace in his unit. I also think about the service and dedication of Mahesh Gouda. Is he here? Stand up, Mahesh. Mahesh, as a vegetarian, was actually force-fed meat in his unit while serving. And while one might think that he would be cautioned against future service, in fact, the opposite has occurred. For Mahesh, the torch of the Nisei warriors burns brighter than ever. Despite the incidents, he too has dealt with it by dedicating himself to service by pursuing a career as an Air Force officer. You see, that's the type of tenacity that heaps credit on our nation at every turn, replenishes cynicism, and replaces it with hope. Through his example, the spirit of courage and vigor reminiscent of the Nisei warriors stays alive. You see, it's people like Gary and Mahesh that give us the ability to move forward and live the ideals we so dearly cherish. You see, they have a bit of that old guard fife and drum that we just heard ringing in their gut. They fought hard alone, and we must come together and fight hard to rectify broader challenges for AAPIs and do it together. I'll add that if these two events were one-offs, we wouldn't be here today. Because we're told when we're talking about climate in DoD, if we allow it to fester, it can eventually kill. So that is our charge today and in the future. For the issues we must address, transcend any one administration. Because if we focus on the values that make us great as a nation and instill it in our culture, it will remain part of our democracy for this administration, the next administration, and 1,000 more to come. It is our duty to keep the torch of freedom and equality forever lit. And you are the generation that will deliver. So think about the challenges before us today. Remember what heroes like Danny Chen, Harry Liu, and now Raheel Siddiqui sacrificed. And realize that your individual contributions today just may be the difference in the lives of service members that will follow you. Be their pathfinders and make your president proud. And for my fellow senior leaders who are participating today, who I'm overwhelmed to see you here en masse, the challenge comes straight from our president to take the voices that are seldom heard at our level and translate them into action. I wish you well in today's journey. Dig in, be provocative, talk about the challenges we face, and move us forward. But most importantly, may God continue to bless our brothers and sisters in service in bunkers, ships, and aircraft all over the world. Thank you.